Today on Business Journey Unlocked, I'm joined by Nils Welin, CEO of ProGuard Security Services. Nils works closely with property managers, facility operator managers just across the Bay Area who are navigating security vendor failure, high guard turnover, and the constant pressure to deliver reliable coverage without breaking the budget. Nils, welcome to the show. I'm going to turn it over to you since you'll explain yourself far better than I ever could.
Kevin, appreciate it. Thanks for being here. Yes, so ProGuard, we are a local Bay Area security company. For the listeners who are not familiar with the security industry, we provide, as I said, manned guard services. We are the people who will stand in the lobby when you walk into a high rise, and we will greet you with a smile on our face and give you excellent customer service and a great experience as you are at the building. And obviously, with that said, also give the property managers, asset managers, the security that they need for their different buildings. So yeah, we operate. The company is founded. I founded the company back in 2015. Today we are about 800 employees across 3 branches in the Bay Area, and we operate and service a lot of the Class A commercial buildings in downtown San Francisco, in East Bay, and then the South Bay. Biotech companies, high-tech companies, a range of different industries that we're involved with. So that's who we are.
The biggest area that I see a lot of security companies fail at is that they try to get as much contracts as possible to grow and expand as quickly as they could. But within your experience, you've seen that hasn't really panned out. So I know you mentioned you started 11 years ago. You're at about an 800 headcount. What exactly did you do in order to not only grow and expand between those 3 districts to get those 800 people, but also make sure that everything that you're doing is future proofing your business?
Right. Well, so security is a very, it's a service industry, and we are faced with a lot of different challenges as it comes down to working with people. We don't have necessarily a product that we put out and we can look at it in the factory and ship it out to the client, and uh, we know exactly how it's going to look like. We work with people, we provide a service, and therefore we need to hire and train and retain employees who can really buy into our vision and mission in terms of delivering the level of security and customer service that we're really focused on. We are not running around and trying, as you said, being the biggest on the block and trying to just take on contracts. We really evaluate not just our operation, but also the client side and see how we fit with that particular client. Not every single client fits with us, and not us fitting with every single client. So, excuse me, building a business, a successful business, you really need to look at, is there a fit between yourself and the service you're providing and the clients that you work with. We're really focused on clients who take a greater interest in security and have a real need for security as in pertains to quality security services. We're not so much going after clients who just wants to have a warm body at the site. We really want to provide a security officer who is trained to the level that the client need and really able to provide that customer service, the white glove customer service approach that we are taking as a company.
You kind of touched on it. The biggest ideas that companies should follow is just having a clear mission and a clear vision in place, and also connecting with other like-minded individuals to make sure their ICP, their ideal customer profile, is who they're trying to hit. You're not trying to get every contract. You do have standards, and you have to push those standards out to your clients just to make sure that both parties are at a pretty much level space. That's the biggest thing. Given your experience you've had, you're a serial entrepreneur. You could have had any company in any field. Why did you choose security? Did you see a pattern? Did you see a failure within the Bay Area that prompted you to initiate ProGuard?
Well, that's very kind of you, Kevin. Yes, I have been in different industries and everything from venture capital to I worked in the software industry and in the high tech field. I got involved in the security industry after 9/11, and
Mhm.
as many other people did. And I did see a growing need in that space, but it was also an opportunity for me to really take a company that was failing and turn that company around. It was an established platform, which I took from 10 employees, and I exited when I taken that to about 1,000 employees and sold off my holdings in that. And I then sought to start ProGuard. And both companies were really focused in on providing a quality service in a growing space. So I did see that uh, there was an opportunity to really elevate the delivery of the quality of services that we provided, and I took the learning lessons, so to speak, that I got from the first company. And even if I was fairly fresh in the industry, obviously that was my first security company, and even if you are building something successfully, there are always things that you will afterwards in the rear mirror say, well, should have done that a little differently. So I really had an opportunity, a unique opportunity that a lot of people are not offered to really witty, a lot of experience, a good network in the industry. I was able to really take a white sheet of paper and created something from scratch. And every organization has some kind of um, history and legacy in a shape and form that's kind of hard to get rid of. But I was really offered that opportunity to grow this from scratch and from a, as I said, from a piece of white paper and just kind of format it to my own idea or based on my own idea. Um, in that journey, I have focused in on a few things that's been tremendously important, and it's really been hiring the right team from day one. And I have getting to where we are today is not a one man shop or a one man mission. This is something that we have done as a team, and I've been afforded to work with the best in the industry, and they've come to join the team, and we really are building something unique from that standpoint. So having the right team members, getting the drivers on the bus, and then the passengers, they just don't necessarily get a token to get on the bus because that's what we want to have. We want to have drivers and not riders on the bus, and really drive the bus forward to deliver the services for our clients. With that said, we also have a very big challenge, and every security company do, because we are all very decentralized from that's just the state, that's the industry, that's how we're built up. Every single person essentially out there worked to some extent independently at client sites. There can be maybe a couple of coworkers or 10 coworkers that you might be working with at a shift, but you don't go to a corporate location. You don't sit in a building with 10,000 other people that you all work for the same company. So you have to build a culture that people can buy into with uh, remote tools. Before remote working became popular, we've been doing this since day one, essentially. So we've always been thinking about how do we handle our remote workers. They're not remote working from home, but they are remote from. We have the same challenges as it comes down to having a remote workforce. Um, and we really need to tie them into the company so they understand the company's vision and mission. So,
Well, the biggest thing is, as you mentioned, just finding the right people to drive your industry. Now, given the headcount that you have with 800 people, comparing Allied Universal, it's a very big company, especially in the East Coast. The biggest thing that I hear from a lot of people is the turnover rate, right? It's just hiring the right people so that turnover rate doesn't happen, getting the right clients so there's no negative clientele experience. So those lifetime values of those clients are much longer in comparison to certain clients, certain hires that may not be ideal for the company. I'm not too sure what your hiring process is, but with any security company, there's always strict guidelines, strict policies. It's not like they're picking some average Joe off the street, be like, okay, you're a ProGuard security now. There's certain guidelines, certain strategies and policies in place that you have within ProGuard to make sure you're hiring the best and the best, not just someone that you picked off of the street. With that in mind, it is really difficult, especially in this age, to find great clientele, great workers, especially with my generation, for example. There's a lot of people my age that may want to go into the security field, but there's a lot of people in the civilian side that doesn't have the proper guidelines, skill sets, qualities that certain security companies are looking for. For example, there's a lot of security companies, primarily probably in the Bay Area. I know there's a lot of companies out in the Midwest and the East Coast as well that only hire people with prior law enforcement, prior military experience. But given the headcount that you have, obviously you look at both areas and it's just figuring out how can you decide who would be the right candidate to fulfill the roles for ProGuard?
Right. It's a very good question, and it is a ongoing challenge to really have find the right people and hire the right people without leaving gaps in the operation, so to speak. Our we Building our culture has been a very important component in how we are how we operate and how we can deliver our services. I think that culture is what makes the difference in an operation, in an organization. And what we have done, we have developed our fundamentals, and we have implemented those across the board. We have a set of 17 different fundamentals that we operate from. And it, it what you want from people is you want to have fundamentals that can change how people act. We are, as individuals, we are able to change. Even if we are older, we are able to change. We want to adapt to the group behavior, so to speak. So if you have a group of people behaving one way, the the best way to fit in, if you want to fit in, is to then adapt to those set of rules that are being applied. And that's really what we're trying to do with our fundamentals, communicate that how we are supposed to be acting and how we're supposed to be um, work as a team. Our fundamentals are really, you can call them values, but they go beyond values because they really are defined how to do certain things. Customer service might mean one thing to you, it might mean a different thing to me. And we got to define what does customer service mean to ProGuard. And when we go out and hire people, of course, we need to look at, do they actually fit into, do they have traits that we can, that fits with our organization? And are there things that they might be lacking that we might be able to train them on? It's more important to find a person who has the right attitude than to find the person with the perfect background, in my opinion. You can teach people and train them on the functions you want them to fill. It's harder for us to train them on attitudes. We can try, but it's much harder. So we really look for attitude when it comes down to finding the right person. We do have some tests that they have to go through to find the right attitude, or to assess their attitude, I should say. Um, but it also comes down to how we talk about a lot of scenarios when we hire our people. How are you going to, how would you handle this situation? And that really gives you and the recruiters the opportunities to really assess if that person's actions would lend itself well to our operation. A lot of
I'm a
companies, as you said, they look for prior law enforcement, a prior military background. Um, I look for customer service oriented people. When
mhm.
was the last time you got pulled over and you felt really good by the cop because he or she was such a great customer service person? They are there to protect and serve us, but some of the police officers that are in the force, and I'm not criticizing them, but they might not be the best individuals from a customer service standpoint. They're good in law enforcement, and that might not always translate well over to security services. Depending on where you operate, clearly there are different levels of security threats. But when you really look at security from the standpoint where you walk into a customer or what a commercial building downtown San Francisco, luckily the security threat is a little bit different and it's more focused on customer service than just pure security. So we're a dual function, really. Yes, we provide security, but we're also providing a high level of customer service. How are we there to serve the tenants and their the clients and their tenants, I should say. So that's what we focus on.
I do agree about what you said about you trying to find the right attitude as opposed to the right skill set. Because as you mentioned, you could train people with the skill set, you can't train people on their attitude, and that's a very big thing that certain companies are lacking because as again, going back to what you said about customer service, cops don't have the great customer service, they're good at their job, but sometimes that connection with people is lacking, and given where you are with your stance with ProGuard, you wanna have that warm, grateful, customer-centric experience when they first walk in to when they walk out. It's being connected with those people. Once you have that certain connection, then people are more likely to respect you, trust you, acknowledge you, expect you there because especially with Allied Universal, there's a lot of turnover rate as we spoke about before. So with that in mind, it's just from the fact that they may not see the same person each time. Right? And just having those same people day in and day out, it puts a familiar face to you. So with that in mind, given where you are, given where the security is heading, there's a lot going into artificial intelligence. There's a lot going into, different tech stacks that securities can use.
How we attract people into the industry. And I think that there's a balance between, as leaders, we really need to push our organizations upwards, not downwards. And if we're going
Right.
to keep on competing on the race to the bottom, meaning that we're going to undercut each other with wages and um, cost to the client, that is not in the long run going to be sustainable, and it's not going to open up to hire and attract people into the industry that are needed. There are trends, obviously, and everybody's talking about AI these days, and there are trends that can be um, utilized, and there is technology can be utilized to cut some funding out of your budget and uh, increase your level of security by using technology and enhancing the current staff that you have in place. But it's a limited amount of sites and security solutions that can take full advantage of the technology that's out there today. Because in the end of the day, the operation that we do run require a lot of thinking, a lot of reaction to a situation that's fluent and is moving in different directions. So it's hard for a AI solution to replace the security officers that are at a location, but it can be an enhanced security solution if you are applying artificial intelligence in certain areas. But if we don't make the security field more attractive long term, we are going to lose out on the ability to bring in talent to the industry, building that talent for the future, and actually making those um, individuals into future leaders in the security industry. There, there is a lack of, speaking generally now, and there's obviously different companies taking different approaches. But if you're going to cut costs, you are doing that on the officers' pay or benefits or training program that you put forth. So if you do skimp on the training, that will be a detrimental thing when a security incident happens, your team, your staff will not be equipped to actually react and address a security threat in the appropriate way. So I do think that there's a risk, and there is I shouldn't call it a trend, but there is definitely a risk for certain companies focusing in on cutting the cost and not focusing on the long-term viability of the security solution that they have in place. So,
You brought up an excellent point of topic. How could we, as a company, as ProGuard, make security in and of itself more intriguing, more interesting to bring in that foot traffic for people to apply for different roles? With your type of business model, AI won't necessarily harm anything because you have to physically be present at the location. Sure, it can help with the back end, it can help with the hiring mechanism. There's a lot of proportions that it could help with in terms of like automating, but besides that, it would never ever replace what you have on the ground. Boots on the ground are the biggest thing that private security companies, face to face security companies actually benefit from. Now, if we're talking about a video surveillance security company, that's a different story. That's another topic. There's a couple agencies that came on with my podcast that are in that kind of realm, and they talked about all the different LLMs, all the different benefits it could help with. It's being more reactive as opposed to proactive. But with that in mind, there's so many areas that it could help with. Even if you don't know, I mean, the biggest issue that I've seen speaking to other individuals as well is there's a lot of individuals that are in the hiring pool that use artificial intelligence to make themselves seem more attractable. How does that benefit you? It's wasting your time, it's wasting your hiring team's time trying to filter down who would actually be the best candidate. There's a lot of people that do that. There's a lot of people that want to seem more attractable, but when you actually meet them, they're like, "Who's this person? This isn't what I'm reading on the paper right now." That's when you know that it's hard to have certain procedures in place in order to filter out what's real and what's fake. That's the biggest issue that I've seen a lot of other companies have in just hiring and recruiting, not just in security, but also other fields as well. There's certain keywords that these softwares are looking for, and they try to take advantage of that to try to get them to the second round, to the third round, to the fourth round. So when they actually get hired, if they get hired, if they actually truly show that they are worth putting the badge on their body. But as you mentioned, it's not about the skill set per se. It's more so evolved around customer centric ideology. And that's the biggest thing going back to that, that a lot of people should be more honed in on. There's a lot of individuals who may not have great customer service, who may not be able to connect with people at a certain level. Regardless of not, we are social people. We're getting connected, even if we're not actually in person. What we're doing right now is still a face to face interaction, just on the computer. Right. There's so many different ways that people can hone in on their skills, but it's also going from how they grew up. There's a lot of factors that dictate exactly how a person would be growing up in adulthood, their environment, the way that they were brought up, their friends, their family. There's so many different areas in which exemplifies their personality, not just a couple.
right.
With people that come onto the show, there's a couple areas that almost any company deals with. You've seen it with your growth and your scale, but in terms of sales, lead generation, trying to find the right contracts, and then getting those correct security guards that would deliver the right responsibilities that are also exemplifying what ProGuard is all about. With that in mind, I'm not too sure if there's anything that you would fix going into 2026 that you believe that ProGuard is lacking currently that could be a little better.
The that that was, I agree with your statements about how AI can kind of, so to speak, twist the truth or actually help in not just good ways, but also in a ways that we are not being helped by. And obviously, we see you have to ask yourself the question: these days. Is it real or is it not? AI
Mhm.
is very good, and if you take everything at face value that you might have taken before or been able to take before, like was the saying, if it was printed in a newspaper, then it was kind of true. Well, if it's printed, it's not necessarily true anymore. So yeah, you're right. We have to be much more diligent when it comes down to making sure that our recruiters understand who they are actually interviewing when they have somebody in front of you. But is there anything we can do tomorrow that we not doing today or improve our business model? That was the question, correct?
Yes.
That's really what I think about every single day. What can we do? What got us here won't get us there.
Mm.
So it's a matter of constantly thinking about ways to improve our service delivery across the board. How do we how do we improve our training? How do we improve our compensation packages? What improvements can we do to maintain or even gain a leadership position against our competitors? Yeah, I shouldn't say it keeps me up at night, but it's really something that I think about on an ongoing basis. This year, we are honing on in more on our culture and really pushing that out, really ensuring that everybody is in line with the culture, understands it, work from the fundamentals that we have, and really build that team so we are a cohesive team. And it doesn't matter what site you go to, it doesn't matter who you interact with within our organization. We should all have a similar mindset from that regards. So that's really something that it will never be done. It will never be a complete task. It's a constant ongoing task that we have to address and have to improve upon. Um, a a strong believer, as we spoke about before we started, in the Ritz-Carlton approach of developing and implementing their culture and their customer service focus. That's really my vision is that we want to be mentioned in the same way as you talk about Ritz-Carlton. We want to be that in the security field. We want to be that company that people really go to and say, "Wow, how did you accomplish this culture within ProGuard?" So that's really a focus for us going forward.
There's always an activity that could be done improvement-wise, just a little better than yesterday.
Right.
With that in mind, no company's perfect. No one's 100% perfect. That's just life. Nothing is perfect in life. But as long as you understand where you are and think of better ways to achieve said results, that's all you can really do. And going on, there's a lot of industries now that are using LLMs to actually facilitate such processes, understanding the complexities of such situations, not saying that is necessarily what you were doing, but there's a lot of individuals that are using it to their benefit. As you mentioned before, it's an enhancer, it amplifies who you are currently. Now, are there people that use LLMs for areas that are not ideal, as in areas that they won't enhance their life? Sure, yeah, that's natural. There's a lot of people that use it not only for a professional development, but also for a personal development. And my ideology is if you're not using those certain softwares to actually improve on your life, what are you using them for? You're just wasting your energy on certain thoughts, ideas that could be better allocated to improving your skill set, improving your attitude, your personality, your vision, your mission. There's a lot of ways that these LLMs could amplify such tasks, but it just depends on the person. Depends on their mindset, their view, their perspective in life. And that's the biggest thing that certain people have to understand. And you got to be super specific with these types of LLMs. You can't be general because if you're general, what's going to happen? You're going to get a general answer. You're going to be upset that it didn't give you the right answer you're looking for. It's just being super specific in those areas would help with yourself, with the business side or with the personal side. It's just you have to understand how these softwares are actually performed. Because when people talk about LLMs or AI, they're always talking about ChatGPT. ChatGPT was the first LLM that came into play back 4 years ago. But nowadays, there's so many LLMs: Anthropic with Claude, Deep AI, QN, Gemini, Grok. There's so many different softwares that people use, and for different areas as well too, right? It depends on what exactly you're looking for in that aspect. With
Right.
that in mind, given how you are in terms of where you are in the business with ProGuard, there's a lot of decisions that you have to make day in and day out. There's a lot of decisions that would dictate getting food on the table, right? It's not only looking out for yourself, but you're looking out for 800 people within your company. That's a very heavy weight that certain people won't have the capability of actually acknowledging and just doing it day in and day out. How are you able to do that? How are you able to go in every day expecting good results, knowing in the back of your mind that you have all these people that are counting on you?
It is, if you put that on the forefront, and if you think about it every single day, and that it allows you to be stressed out over it, then you might not be the right person for the job. I am fully aware of the fact that my decisions have impacts, not just on myself, but that's the leadership role that I have. It has impact on the entire organization, and you have to be able to balance those decisions in a way that it's obviously most beneficial for the company. And if you are a gambler, you might be betting the farm in a situation where it's just not worth taking the risk. I would say that I'm a cautious risk taker, or a calculated risk taker. We we don't bet the farm on different situations, and I take my responsibility for to all my employees very, very seriously. But what I want to do, and what it really drives me, which is really the one of my one of the real motivating factors why I do what I do, is to really give opportunities to people in the organizations. When you start out as a security officer, and we're located in Bay Area, and I know that there are different wage range across the country, but when you get hired in San Francisco or so, you might be making $25 an hour around there. You're working in a high-rise building. But if you're doing your job, and you're good at it, and you're working with the company will give you opportunities to grow. And you can, over a fairly limited amount of time, talking about 2, 3, maybe 4 years, depending on what position you have, you can double, maybe even triple your compensation, depending on what positions you are being offered. And when I see the individuals in my company who are taking those opportunities and are actually growing with the company, I'm very that's that's really the driving force behind what I'm doing. It's very it, it's it's very dear to my heart, and it's rewarding for me to see that they are taking those opportunities and actually growing with the company. And when I see that, and when people do that, I also know that the success for the company is shared with these individuals. It's not, they are also looking out for the company. They know that the company is there for them, and they want to be there for the company. So it helps me in my decision making, because I know that I have good people around me who will help me make the right decisions. So it doesn't keep me up at night, but it is definitely a responsibility that I take very, very seriously. Yes.
The best type of growth is the one within.
Yep.
And when you see that, when you have an environment in place where you're able to see people grow and expand, again, not only from a personal development, but also from professional development as well, that would be very near and dear to a lot of people's hearts, because they show that they actually take themselves, their job, the company's mission, the company's value very seriously to the point where they want to grow and expand. And it's even more beneficial when you see somebody who may have lacked the skill set when they first came into the company. Now 4 years later, they're making triple. They're up in the ranks. That is a very excellent story to tell. And those are the type of individuals that you're really looking for. You're looking for individuals that actually care about ProGuard, that actually want to grow within the company, that don't really necessarily look at it as just another job. You're taking serious people. Again, it's going back to the attitude. It's going back to their mindsets on how they work. Going back to personality tests. There's a lot of personality that goes into play in terms of being a really good security guard. It's all about the warmness, the how you connect with people. Because people think of security guards as just somebody who's just gonna be looking at the door or sitting behind a desk. There's a lot that actually goes behind the scenes that they may not acknowledge or even realize. So with that in mind, if you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice when you first started ProGuard, knowing what you know now, what would it be?
Uh, that's an interesting question. I think that you you have to you kind of evolve with the company in a way. If there's a particular advice, I'm not sure I can go back in time and give me that. But what I can give as a guiding star is really how you need to be very uh, in line with what you're going to do. You need to be purposeful. You really need to understand why you're doing and what you're doing. Why do you want to get into the business in the first place? And if it's just to say, well, I'm going to make a lot of money, that could be a driving factor. It could be good, but I think that's you're missing kind of the big picture, and that's if that's the case. And I think a lot of people do get into the business to just make money. It looks easy from the outside potentially. There are not a lot of barriers to enter. You need to have a PPO license. I'm speaking from California right now. Some states though it doesn't even require that, and it doesn't take that much to get a PPO license. And then you need to be able to hire some people and staff some contracts. And it could look pretty easy from the outside. Um, I can assure you, it's not that easy. There's a lot of pitfalls that you can walk into as you're starting a security company. And you really need to be purposeful in what you're doing. So when I set out to build ProGuard, um, I had both I wrote pretty much everything down on a big whiteboard. I listed my my top 5 customers I was going to go after in the first year. I listed out how we were going to be structured from an operational standpoint. I listed out the values, worked on the missions. I spent about a year working on the platform before I actually launched it. And the preparation um, that I put into it before going live was paid off tremendously, because when I started then picking up the contracts that I had identified, and when I started getting the traction, when I started doing actually delivering the service, you don't have that time. You don't have that luxury to really sit back and just go, okay, what am I going to do now? Or how am I going to structure this? You really need to do that upfront. So if somebody comes around and asks and tells you, oh, you should start your own security company and here's a contract, think twice about it before you actually do that. You really need to put the framework in place first. You need to put your structure in place before you start offering a service to somebody. There are about 8,000 security companies in the US today. 7,800 of those or 7,500 of those have a revenue less than $5 million. And they're staying there. None of those are growing um, out of that size. They're kind of pigeonholed into that market size or company size. And if you really don't do the planning first, you will always be playing catch up. And that's what we avoided. So the big tip I already gave it from the beginning, because that's how I structured my approach to the field. Have it all in order before you go out and start selling your services. We've been in business for, yeah, that's 11 years now, and we are the same size as customers or clients of competitors, sorry, that's been in the business for 20 plus years. So we have in a fairly short period of time got into a size of company that it's taken other people to take to 20 years to get to. Um, and I really think that was due to our meticulous planning before we actually went live. So that's the tip I give myself.
That's beautiful, and it really does go to show that frameworks and systems, even before you scale, are most beneficial. As we spoke about in the beginning, there's a lot of security companies that care so much about the scaling aspect that they forget to consider their foundation, their framework, their systems. Because what happens when you get 20 contracts and you only have 10, 15 people? How are you going to facilitate? Now you're going to find new people to hire. You got to figure out who exactly would be the most beneficial. And there's a lot of time that takes with hiring, especially for security, especially for armed security as well. Forget about unarmed security. Armed security, there's so much different procedures, trainings that they have to do to actually make them a viable candidate, not only in terms of your business, but also on the security business as a whole. You need to briefly touch on the fact that each state is different. Not only is it a low barrier to start a security company, it's a low barrier to get your unarmed security license in many states. I'm not sure how it is in the state of California, but in New Jersey, it's very easy to get. There's certain people that can get it, and they may not be the best candidate. Now, how can you differentiate between this person who has a security license, an unarmed security license, who may have the right amount of attitude but lacks the skill set? But then you have an armed security guard that has the skill set but lacks the attitude, right? So it's like a flip of a coin, pretty much. It's just you have to figure out the best amount of time to allocate such resources to figure out who would be the best candidate to hire, who would be the best candidate to bring on as a client. And if you don't have those frameworks in place, you're not going to go far. You could cap out, as you mentioned, at the 5 million range, but then there's so many people that want to get past that 5 million range. How could they do that? They have to go back to the drawing board. They have to understand why they start their business, who's their ICP, what exactly are the services they're providing, and how are they going to tackle such resources that they allocate. Those are a lot of questions that are very simple and beneficial, but there's certain founders, certain CEOs that lack even thinking about that day to day as you are with ProGuard. And I commend you for that because it really does show. I mean, as you mentioned, where you are takes security companies 20 years to get, and you did it in half that time. Why? Because you actually took the time to put the resources in place to figure out what your systems will be, what your framework would be, who would be in this area, and what actions would they need in this sort of area as well, and what's your fallback? There's a lot of companies that don't have a fallback, and I
Yeah,
commend you for that.
the one thing I want to take away from that is, when you're really setting out to build, you need to build for size. You need to build, even if you only have 2 contracts or 5 contracts, or you have a smaller workforce of 20 people or 30, whatever the number is. If you don't build a structure right from the beginning that you can scale friction free, then you're not going to be able to scale it, because if you're building if you're building the house at the same time as you have to find the tools and find the raw material and be out there scrambling around, well, you're just not going to be able to focus on the delivery of quality and the service quality, what the clients are actually asking you to do. They're not so concerned about where you're getting the uniforms from or how you're setting up your mobile devices and all these things. And if you don't have the right vendors in place to support you, guess what? You're not going to have the support to actually deliver a quality service to your customers. There's been vendors who's disappointed me as well over the years. And we have ended up with egg in our face because they didn't hold up their end of the bargain. Clearly, we have to make decisions and tough ones when that happens, and find the right solution. But if you're dealing with 5 or 6 of those situations at the same time, guess what? Your clients are going to see it. Your clients are going to start wondering if they made the right decision, and they might cancel your contract. So if you don't have your house in order before you start selling, again, it's just a recipe for disaster, or recipe for a at least a scramble at least for some scrambled egg. It's not going to be a perfect situation for sure.
I agree. It is a recipe for disaster. And given your experience, as I mentioned, you're a serial entrepreneur, so there will be some mistakes that will come. That's completely normal. There's a lot of people that fall flat on their face 10 times, and after the 11th time, they actually picked it up and understood what it is. But if you keep doing the same mistakes over and over again, expecting a different outcome, that's a clear definition of insanity. You
Right.
have to understand, you have to pivot, you have to acknowledge what went wrong, and what not to do again. That's the biggest areas that certain people have to understand because it's not rainbows and
Mm.
kittens every single day. There's a lot that goes behind the scenes, especially given your headcount of 800 employees. There's a lot that goes behind closed doors that certain people may not understand or even acknowledge. Going back to the security officer, it's not like they're sitting behind the desk all day. They're doing stuff every single minute. You may not see it, you may not even acknowledge it, but when actually stuff goes wrong, that's when you understand, okay, where's the security guard? Oh, he's over there. Right. With that in mind, people don't acknowledge these certain aspects, these certain areas until something negative happens. Going back about what you said about the personal brand. If you may not have certain guidelines and frameworks in place and certain clienteles do see that, then they might reconsider the contract and cancel it. It's all about having the right policies and frameworks in place, and that's beautiful. You couldn't have said it any better. For anyone who's listening or watching this, Niels, what's the best place for them to either reach out to you or to ProGuard for your services?
Yeah, so obviously it's our webpage is the best place to start, and that's a long domain name, so it's ProGuardSecurityServices.com. That's ProGuardSecurityServices.com. So that's the easiest way to get in touch with me, and there's our all our contact information is on that site. And clearly, we are both hiring and we are also taking on new clients. So if anybody listen wants to join the team on either side, as an employee or as a client, we are here to support you. So yes, please feel free.
Beautiful. Thank you, Niels. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me.
Thank you, Kevin. It's been a joy. Thank you.